Good morning for some of us, good afternoon for others. Welcome to another extremely topical and timely Met webinar. As we know, last week, Romi Gonen, Damari, and Doron Steinbrecher were returned into the arms of their loved ones. And this Saturday, we saw the returns of our 4 female soldiers from their lookout base near us, where they were captured in Gaza, from Nama Levy, Danielle Gilboa, Larry Albag, and Karini Levy. God willing, tomorrow we'll see the return of 20-year-old Arbel Yahud and 21-year-old Adam Berger, and one other hostage, perhaps the American hostage, Keith Siegel, who is 65. There are a tremendous number of national security implications for the release of these hostages. Certainly, yesterday we saw the scenes of about 200,000 Gazans going north, and many of them flashing the victory signs. And on Israel's northern border, last Sunday and Monday, we saw Lebanese Shiites streaming to the south, many of them with Hezbollah flags and holding posters of the deceased Sheikh Nasrallah. And unfortunately, they are not abiding by the UN Security Resolution 1701 or the agreements that Amos Hochstein had made with the Lebanese armed forces having to disarm Hezbollah, and Hezbollah is not supposed to be going south of the Litani River. The ceasefire was supposed to have passed last Sunday, but now it will continue until February 18th. So we have a lot of national security concerns about what exactly is going on. Up until last week, the Houthis had been sending missiles into Israel. Now they are attacking ships bound for Israel in the Red Sea. And of course, the most important national security concern is the Iranian nuclear bomb, where we know that they have over 200 kilometers of highly enriched uranium at the 60%, and to go from the 60% to the 90% is extremely easy. We also know that there's support from Russia and China for the Iranian nuclear bomb. During a joint press conference with Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian on January 21st, Russian President Vladimir Putin claimed that Russia is aiding Iran's civil nuclear work despite sanctions and pressure. And simultaneously, reports indicate that China has been supplying Tehran with a key missile propellant ingredient, making the Chinese entities involved subject to American sanctions aimed at degrading Iran's weapons program. So Israel it's fighting at least a war on 7 fronts. And we are really honored to have with us today the very, very esteemed Brigadier General Amir Avivi, whose voice has tremendous impact throughout national security circles in Israel and throughout the world. And since we're of little time, I'm going to ask Amir to take it away. What are the national security concerns of opening up the prisons over the next 42 days or 40 days and releasing some of these Palestinian terrorists?
Okay, I would like to start with something optimistic, okay? I want to reassure people, Israel intends to win this war decisively. We're not going to give up any goal of war. Hamas will be destroyed. We're going to get all our hostages back. We're going to create a reality in Gaza that never again there will be a terror army in Gaza. And Israel is not giving up any goal. But if I have to really describe what we have been going through, I would say all of us, by the way. I think, we started with the huge shock of the 7th of October and the worries, and then the IDF started fighting in Gaza, and we saw how we are dismantling Hamas militarily, and then came the war against Hezbollah, and the sense was like 6-day war, a huge win, a big relief. Everybody was very worried what will happen when we fight Hezbollah with the endless amount of missiles and rockets and everything. And we managed to bring this organization on its knees in 2 weeks. And we saw and Iran, and everybody was ecstatic and happy. And now it feels like there is a setback. Something is changing. We have the ceasefire in Gaza. On one hand, we are getting our hostages. It's very, very important. It's Israel's obligation to bring back the hostages, and it's a clear goal of war. But at the same time, this gives Hamas obviously the opportunity to organize. We had to give up preventing from the Gazans to go back to the northern part of Gaza. We see suddenly all these cowards that fled into the humanitarian zone and hid, taking out their clean uniforms and putting uniforms of terrorists and showing off. So rest assured, these were the cowards who didn't fight the IDF. They fled into the humanitarian zone, not very big heroes. And we have to bring now, because of this agreement, a lot of humanitarian aid, and also we are releasing terrorists. So obviously there is a lot of downside, but on the other hand, we need to get the hostages, and it's very important for the Israeli society, and I would say probably for the whole Jewish world. In Lebanon, now, after the 60 days of ceasefire ended, Hezbollah is trying to check where are the lines, the red lines. They try to send citizens back south, and the IDF reacted by shooting, killing about 22 terrorists and hurting many. And I visited the north this week. I saw really how the IDF leveled down all these towns that became terror hubs for Hezbollah along the border, but also the challenges we have rebuilding our own towns and bringing back the people. So it feels like an intermediary time that we are not continuing to destroy Hamas, and this creates a feeling that maybe we're not going to reach the goals of war, maybe the war is going to stop, maybe we didn't really win. But I want to make it clear, we are in the midst of a long campaign. The IDF is training and preparing to go back and fight in Gaza and preparing the plans. Since we have a ceasefire in Gaza, we moved many units to Judea and Samaria, and we launched a big attack on the terror infrastructure in the Samaria area, in Jenin, in Tulkarem. And it's not a short campaign. We launched an attack to destroy the infrastructure in these cities. So I would say that looking at the overall picture, we started with a big attack on Gaza and degraded a lot Hamas as a military entity. After 10 months, we saw that we set pretty much the terms for destroying Hamas, and we shifted the center of gravity from Gaza to Lebanon. We attacked in Lebanon. We degraded Hezbollah dramatically. We took them back like 20 years. Syria fell because of that. And now we are moving our ground forces to the mountains of Judea and Samaria, and we're attacking there. So Israel is on the attack. And as we are doing so, the whole center of gravity of the Air Force and our military industries is moving towards getting ready to attack Iran. So this is part of the process, and we have been fighting for a year and 4 months. We need to re-equip. We need to organize our munitions. Finally, President Trump released all the munitions for Israel and bulldozers and everything we need, and they're sending a lot of munitions to Israel. And this is very, very helpful. So we're not wasting time while we are having this ceasefire and getting our hostages. We are building the forces, we're equipping them, we're getting munitions, planning the next step with Iran and the Houthis, and operating in Judea and Samaria. And while doing so, we know that there is a meeting between Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump. President Trump sent an invitation to Netanyahu saying, it's a short invitation, but it says 3 important things. One, you are the first leader that I invited to visit the White House. Second, we want to discuss peace agreements. Third, we have to discuss how to counter our adversaries. So on one hand, the president is sending a message: you are the most important country. You are the first, and I want to meet you first. Second, we are looking at countering the Chinese, Russian, Iranian front. For this, we want to do regional and global peace agreements with Saudi Arabia and other moderate Sunni states. We want to counter the Shia axis, and we want to counter the radical Sunni axis. We see what's happening in Syria. We see what's happening in Afghanistan. It's not only about the Shia axis, it's also ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Jabhat Nusra, all these guys who are radical Sunnis. But also a message that says we need to counter our adversaries. This is Iran, this is Hamas, Hezbollah. And when President Trump is talking about relocating Gazans out of Gaza, he's saying it seriously. It's not a joke. So big things are going to happen. But we want to reach this point when we have our hostages. And the big question is what will happen at the end of stage 1. Stage 1, we're supposed to release 33 hostages. I'm not even sure we'll really manage to get all of them, because a third of the hostages we're getting only on the last day of the deal. Is Hamas going to release them in the last day? I don't know. So we really need to discuss what's the plan for pressuring Hamas to release the remaining hostages, because the second phase says the following: Hamas needs to release all the hostages and also lay down their weapons and get out of Gaza. This is not a simple goal to achieve, because this basically means they completely surrender and go away and give our hostages. Right. So what will make them do that? And for this, we need to, when President Trump says, if you don't give the hostages, there will be hell, this phrase wasn't really relevant for the first stage. It will be very relevant for the second stage. And we need to translate what it means. What is hell? Is the first military attack, it's withholding humanitarian aid, it's building humanitarian bubbles near our border and disconnecting Hamas completely from the society. There are many things that we can do, or it's moving all the Gazans to Egypt or Jordan. And this is the kind of discussions the Israeli government is having. But at least when I speak with the army and also with the government and the Ministry of Defense, we spent 3 hours with the Ministry of Defense, the message was crystal clear. Israel is going to win decisively on all fronts. We're not going to stop until we reach total victory, no matter how long it will take, a year, half a year, no matter. We have to reach the goals of war. And I would say this is an area where a period of time where we have to stick to Zionism, not cynicism. Because people tend to be very cynical, and this is not the time to be cynical. This is the time to stand strong, fight, and win this war.
Wonderful. So I have 100 million questions swarming in my head. One is, that um, President Sisi and King Abdullah are not, King Hussein rather, are not very happy about the thought, especially in Jordan, where the population is 70% Palestinian, and they're not very happy about the thought of receiving Palestinians. They are a destabilizing force in every country they've been to. Yet America gives $1.8 billion a year to Egypt and $1.3 billion a year to Jordan. Do you think we could use that as leverage to get some of the Gazans to willingly want to leave?
Definitely. I think that both countries, Egypt and Jordan, are suffering for many problems, talking about their economical situation. And you can, on one hand, threaten them, on the other hand, incentive them. And we assure them that they'll get more money and more help. And from Assisi, it doesn't necessarily need to absorb all these Palestinians. It needs to open the border. It needs to let them go. I mean, most of them want to emigrate, not necessarily to Egypt, but they want to get out. When the Egyptian border was open at the beginning of the war, 300,000 Gazans left Gaza. And you cannot lock them. I mean, if people want to go, they should be able to leave. I think that the most crucial step is opening the border and letting people go out. Where they go afterwards is their business. Wherever they want to go. I mean, in the war with Ukraine, 8 million Ukrainians left Ukraine. Nobody locked them inside Ukraine. Cannot lock people. So I think that definitely there will be a pressure on Egypt to open the border. I don't know about Jordan, what the talks will be. I agree that with Jordan, this might destabilize the regime. That's not the case for Egypt. It's a country that more than 100 million Egyptians. I don't see how 1 million Palestinians can destabilize this. So we'll have to see. But I think that the important thing is to understand that Israel and America are completely aligned in the understanding Hamas cannot stay in Gaza. One way or another, this entity needs to go, and we are not going to enable any future buildup of force in the Gaza Strip. It's not an option. So does the hostage deal have repercussions? Does it make things a bit more difficult? Certainly, yes. Is it so dramatic? No. Not yet. I mean, we are still controlling Philadelphi and the perimeter. Any buildup Hamas can do, it's only with resources it has inside Gaza, and we destroyed a lot of their capabilities. And there is so much you can do in a month. And Israel is preparing to launch a very, very decisive attack on them once the deal is over, whether it's over in the first step, whether it's over in the second step. But bringing the hostages, it's also a clear goal of war, which we need to achieve. So we need to balance between the goals. At a certain point, we're prioritizing destroying Hamas. Now we're prioritizing bringing the hostages, but it's still part of an overall plan, not one or another.
I know that President Trump has released the 200,000 pound ton bunker buster bombs. Is that sufficient, or do you need more to be able to attack Iran?
So everything that President Trump is releasing is a very big help for Israel, and we need this, and it's important. But we are also moving very fast towards self-production, the ability of Israel to produce its own capabilities. Our industries are growing very fast, producing more and more capabilities for the Air Force, for the artillery, for the armored forces, explosives, everything that Israel needs. So while we are continuously degrading our enemies, our industries are growing dramatically in a way that enables Israel to sustain the war and build itself for the long term, to be able to defend ourselves by ourselves and not be dependent on anybody.
So it's been a very, very long war, and many people have been called back into the Miluim, into the reserves time and time again. How is the morale in the army and in the reserves?
The morale is amazing. It's really high. Our soldiers are with very high morale. They feel that in every encounter they are winning. Um, the reserve have been working very, very hard. It has been hard for the families, but overall everybody is with really high motivation, and they understand the importance of the war. Um, I think that one of the challenges is really getting everybody to serve, whether it's the ultra-Orthodox and people who haven't served. We cannot allow ourselves a reality where people are not serving. We need everybody to serve, to really build an army big enough to be able to sustain long wars like that, and also really enable people also to continue their everyday life. I mean, we have reservists that have been serving for 200 or 250 days a year, and they have a job, they have families to go to. So it has been a very, very challenging year. And part of, by the way, prioritizing now a ceasefire and really getting the hostages, it gives also time to our soldiers to rest, reorganize, regroup. This is part of the process. This is part of the big picture.
So we haven't really addressed Hezbollah and how they are absolutely ignoring the agreements Amos Hochstein had secured, or UN Security Council Resolution 1701, and how they're going back with their yellow flags and their pictures of the late Hassan Nasrallah onto the border. Do you feel that's another front that we have to continue?
So basically, Israel, when we launched this attack on Hezbollah, we didn't set a goal completely destroying Hezbollah, because completely destroying Hezbollah means conquering all of Lebanon. And we didn't want to do that, but we hit them really, really hard. And now we are enforcing the ceasefire in a way that Israel has full freedom of operation all over Lebanon. Anywhere Hezbollah tries to rebuild, we attack. So we basically, there is a coordination with the US and France and Lebanon, but if we see a buildup and we say they are doing something, dismantle this, and they don't, we immediately attack. In the ceasefire, we killed more than 65 Hezbollah terrorists, and we hit different places. Now Hezbollah has even bigger challenges to rebuild, because they lost Syria. Syria is in the control of the radical Sunnis, who are sworn enemies of Hezbollah. So they are not enabling any smuggling from Syria to Lebanon. We are controlling the air and the sea, and we are continuing to degrade them. But to really dismantle Hezbollah, according to Resolution 1559, this is an international effort, and an effort that needs to be coordinated with the Lebanese government. And it's a process. And I think that with President Trump moving towards dismantling Hezbollah is something that is more viable and might actually happen. So we need to stay strong, continue to degrade them all the time, but push internationally for a bigger intervention of the US and Europe, and really, really imposing on Lebanon Resolution 1559 that says that Lebanon needs to be a sovereign country with one army, with no militias. All the militias need to be dismantled, including Hezbollah. And also the Syrians need to get out of Lebanon and not influence what's going on in Lebanon. Will it happen? It's a dynamic. We don't know. And it's also will be affected with what will happen with Iran, because we understand that at the end of the day, if we want to deal with all these militias, Hezbollah, Houthis, and so on, we need to cut the head of the snake. And the head of the snake is Iran. We need to attack Iran. And Israel is building itself for an attack, but it would be much better if we can really do that in coordination with the US and with the US leading the attack and not Israel. I think it's time that the US shows that it's willing to use power. You cannot build global deterrence without showing that you're willing to fight somewhere. And it's not smart to challenge the Iraqis or the Russians. The Iranians are the weak link, and we need to hit them, and we need to hit them hard and together. And if we launch a very pinpointed attack on them, which will destroy their nuclear military capabilities, this will create global deterrence. This will affect also China, Russia. It will change the whole globe. And that's the right place to show power. And we showed that there are tiger paper. We showed how we can send 100 airplanes, destroy all their air defense, attack nuclear sites, and go back safely home. So there is no reason why the US Army, CENTCOM, cannot participate and bring also the strategic bombers and other capabilities and hit them really, really hard.
We've gotten a couple of excellent questions. One is, why is there no pressure from the American government on Qatar? We, unfortunately, we do have an air base there. Qatar is a very, very wealthy country, but it's also been enabling terrorists. They have the Al Jazeera network, which is extremely anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, especially in Arabic. Why is there no pressure?
Yeah, I think there should be very big pressure. Qatar is Muslim Brotherhood. This is Hamas. Hamas and Qatar are the same thing. And I think it's important that the administration realizes how dangerous Qatar is, and also monitor and do something about the fact that Qatar is infiltrating American universities and in American politics. They are really using huge amounts of money to change America. They are a threat to America and to America's way of living and values. And it's time that really America deals with this. So yeah, Qatar needs to be dealt with. They are together with Turkey on the Sunni radical axis and not the moderate Sunni axis of Saudi Arabia, Emirates, Indonesia, and so on.
Right. And Turkey is a big danger, especially in Syria, to the Kurdish minority. Could we exert any pressure on Turkey? I mean, Erdogan is certainly no lover of Israel, and he has embraced Hamas.
So part of NATO. And as part of NATO, I think definitely the US has a lot of leverage on them. So it will be interesting to see how President Trump builds his strategy regarding Turkey. Turkey is trying to expand their influence in the Middle East and also in Libya and other places. There are huge military buildup. They are building military indies. They are becoming a very dangerous country. And it's something the US needs to take in account. And also Israel. We're watching very, very closely what Turkey is doing on the Syrian border and making sure they don't build up the radical Sunnis in Syria in a way that will endanger Israel.
What do you think of Ahmad Shara, Mohammed Golani? Do you think he is actually engaging in taqiyya, in whitewashing himself to the world? Or do you think he's a potential danger?
think it's a very radical person, but also very sophisticated. He wants to see sanctions relief. He wants to get money and economy, but the long-term plans are the same radical Islamic plans. So we need to be very aware of who we are dealing with and open our eyes and make sure that they don't build a capability that will endanger us.
Exactly, exactly. And we got one question. If we put the Gazans into Egypt or into Jordan, they'll still be on Israel's borders, and many of them are volatile. Would that create a further danger for Israel? Could we send them to Indonesia? I know there's been some plans for that, or other places.
Yeah, obviously, the furthest away it's better, but I think that definitely if there will be a massive movement of Gazans outside Gaza to other countries, no matter what country it is, this will benefit immensely Israel, talking about deterrence. And it also, I think it will send a very crystal clear message. What's the price for massacring 1,200 people, for taking hostages, for doing all the atrocities that they did? So we'll have to see what plan is viable.
Your voice, Amir, is extraordinarily important. We have to amplify your voice, especially around the world, the American Jewish diaspora community, because as the war goes on, there's been an atrophy of enthusiasm, of support for the war. And they don't know what the existential risk is for the state of Israel and for the Jewish people all around the world in terms of anti-Semitism, if God forbid Israel would go. So I'm so grateful to you. I know you have limited time, but I am so grateful to you. This is the true Zionist message, and we all have to hang in there with Israel and support it as best as we can. And please, if you can, support IGSF. It's igsf.org.israel. And of course, support Emet. We are on Capitol Hill every day. We were the first people who thought of the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act. It looks like it's going to pass using the IRA, the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition. And unfortunately, yesterday in the Senate, the ICC sanctions bill was defeated by the Democrats, but we will keep working on that because what is going on in these organizations of international jurisdiction is just outrageous for the state of Israel and even for the United States of America. So, Amir, I know your time is limited. I can't thank you enough for everything that you're doing for Israel and the Jewish people.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.